So many of you are probably well aware of actor Stanley Tucci and his series about rediscovering Italy. Well, his family comes from a small village called Marzi, which is just barely half an hour from where my family comes from, up in the mountains of Calabria. So today we're going to try to show you the beauty of the villages of Martirano and Conflenti. My great-grandfather Carlo and his family lived in Conflenti. My relatives that are still there live in a village, a sister village called Martirano, which is right next to it. They're literally separated by no more than 5 or 10 minutes, and that's only because of the roads. But want to give you a sense of what it is. It's a very different terrain than Diamante. Diamante obviously being on the water, going up into the mountains here. It's quite a journey with a lot of switchbacks. But this little Italian rice rocket, it's no match for that. It can do it. But hold on to your seatbelts here. So my great-grandfather, Carlo, left this area after the great earthquake in 1908. His family stayed behind, his brother and their children. And so the families became separated. But this area, you'll see just from the scenery, it's very agricultural, very rural, very rustic, but absolutely spectacular. Again, southern Italy had many different groups, from the Greeks to the North Africans, that invaded this area. So a lot of the inhabitants moved high. They moved up to the mountaintops. That's where they created their settlements. A lot of that was for defensive reasons. This particular village actually dates back to the Romans. The Romans built this along a road that they call La Papilia. Now, La Papilia is just like the Appian Way. And as we come up here on the right, you're going to look down into that valley, and at the very base of that, in just a moment, you'll see what was La Papilia, and it was a road south that the Roman armies marched on. And there it is there. You can see that little light green area. That's La Papilia. And Martirano sits on that. This is a village of no more than 1,000 people, maybe as few as 500. Today, the economy is still principally agricultural with some tourism. Gorgeous, beautiful. But for the young folks here, not a lot in the way of opportunity, professional opportunity. For many, or most, including my cousins, they're drawn to the north. They're drawn to the industrial centers like Milan and Turin that afford them more opportunity. Look at that bus. It's incredible that somebody could drive a bus full size through these narrow streets with all these cars and obstacles, with all the switchbacks, and get it up and down the mountain with ease. It's just incredible. But you'll see this village, Martirano, did suffer damage in the earthquake of 1908. And as you walk through the village, you'll still see damage. You'll still see some of the destroyed buildings and some of the ruins that sit to this day. This is the main piazza. And when my children were young, I had no qualms about letting them come here at any time, day or night, to play soccer, because it's a pretty small village. Everybody knows everybody. Very safe. And that piazza is the center of life here. The folks here are focused on family and being with each other, not so much on sort of the outside material world. There's one little shop here, right? So if you want for your groceries, there's one shop, and that's here on the right in that little orange building. Your eggs, your milk, it's all on the shelf. It's all fresh, no preservatives whatsoever. My cousin Sophia has a wonderful pasticceria bakery here on the right, the most incredible dolce sweets. Now we're on our way to Conflenti. Look at all of the olive trees. So olive oil is a cash crop from Calabria. Just incredible. And the rolling terrain here is beautiful. But we continue to ascend. We're going higher and higher in terms of elevation as we go on our way to Conflenti. But these roads used to be just donkey paths that have tar on them, and that's about it. Again, not much in the way of guardrails or protection. And on the right is Conflenti emerging. You can see it. The village is not much larger than Martirano. But back in the day when my great-grandfather was here, this was a barter economy. He was a cobbler. So if my great-grandfather Carlo needed food, if he needed chickens, he needed somebody who wanted shoes and to exchange it. So very inefficient, but that's how this economy worked. Very rustic, but beautiful, absolutely spectacular. And And so as we come up here, we're coming up on
really
the main
nice.
church. You'll see some of the older structures. Again, like Martirano, very narrow streets. And so I mentioned before that the Virgin Mary appeared and performed miracles here back in 1578 on top of Reventino Mountain, which is just across from Conflenti. They used to they had what they believed to be the actual tree that she appeared in, mounted near the church, but it was struck by lightning some years ago, and kind of charred remains are all that remain. Look at these narrow cobblestone streets everywhere. Very rustic, very picturesque. Still inhabited. There's still, there are still residents here to this day. But this is your typical Italian hill town. And again, very similar to the pictures you may have seen of Marzi that Stanley Tucci has shared with the world. Now, when I was here in 2015, I came across a doorway that just called to me. I thought it was beautiful. It's old and beautiful. It's coming up on the right. So I took a picture of it, not knowing where I was. And then some years later, my cousin Santo took me back and showed me that exact doorway that's coming up on the left was my great-grandfather Carlo's house. And I had no idea. And there was just something beautiful about it. It's a very modest, very, very modest home, as you can see. But there was something about it that just drew me in. And this is my great-grandfather's home. So there's something really special, not just about seeing history, but also being able to touch it. I've always impressed that on my children about this is an opportunity to sort of go back in time and really see where your roots come from. But this is where the Audino family began. This is the main church in the piazza in Conflenti, again, right across from Reventino Mountain.
Buongiorno, signore. Buongiorno.
So now, as you drive these mountain roads, they're one lane, so hopefully you'll have somebody friendly like that to let you go. There's my cousin Maria, there's Julia, there's her husband Mario, and so Corey wouldn't trust me driving up here, but she did trust Mario. So this is the church on top of Reventino Mountain.
Oh, wow.
And again, as our villagers believe, the Virgin Mary appeared to a sheep herder, Lorenzo, back in 1578. And over a series of appearances and days, the Virgin Mary performed miracles. And her only request was that a church be built on that same location, which sits on top of Reventino Mountain, to honor her, and which obviously they've done. And this is the church. This is that location. You can see down into the valley. You can see kind of the elevation that we're sitting at, we're much higher than both Martirano and Conflenti. But between those trees, off in the distance, you can see Conflenti. So it gives you a sense of just how high we are at this point. It's just beautiful. It's just gorgeous. And there's the church as she stands today. This is the original structure
Come inside.
on top of Reventino Mountain. Take you inside. And its beauty is not in anything opulent. Its beauty is in its simplicity and just how modest it is. And to this day, it still remains an active church. They still hold services here at least once a week. You can see the Stations of the Cross painted on the wall. Now, that treetop is the treetop that Mary appeared on. And you can see depicted above it is the Virgin Mother and the angels that accompanied her. And my parents would spend the summers here in Conflenti and Martirano, and every Sunday my father was intent on driving all the way up Reventino Mountain to come to Mass here. It's very special, absolutely beautiful. Again, it's beautiful in its modesty, it's beautiful in its simplicity. And now as we step outside, the locals also believe that they captured Mary's footprints. So there's a sacristy that sits outside down this path where they believe her footprints are encased in stone. And so what a lot of folks will do is they will open up and they will leave photographs, they'll leave prayer cards, prayer intentions, asking for Mary to intervene on their behalf with Jesus. It's beautiful. It's a very special location.
Una foto.
My cousin Julia has left many things here specifically for my parents. It's a very special experience.
Sì, sì, sì,
Metto
sì,
una foto di
sì,
un...
sì.
But the one thing my father told me before he passed 6 years ago was that my family here in Calabria was the best family I had. Thank you.